Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Mr. Kaz exclusive. Okay? I shared with you in class today something that no teacher ever shared with me, nor have I ever seen any other teacher use this in their classroom. This is actually my invention, my creation, to help you understand exactly how you can pick up any book, any story, and know how it operates so that you can make a connection, which is your goal, with anything you ever read ever for the rest of your lives. If you only understand one concept at the end of this year, it needs to be this one, because this will unlock for you everything that you'll ever read. Any piece of literature that you will ever read for the rest of your lives. I had you come in today, and you worked on this fire starter. How can knowing something work? How can knowing how something works help you use it more effectively? And we established that if we know the basic structure for things, we can apply them in other situations and be independent and efficient, using things effectively, and being able to do them on our own. See, if I know how to change a tire on my car, chances are I know how to change a tire on another car. Because I know the structure. I know how the process works, how the procedure works. Does that mean I can apply it the exact same way? No. I'm going to have to apply it a different way. But I still know how to do something, and that allows me to apply it in other situations. The same thing holds true with literature. You see on the board a diagram. We call this diagram something. We call it plot structure. We call it plot structure. And you and I both know, because we went through this today, we reviewed it from other years, but you and I both know. We've got exposition as the very first part of any story we read. We've got rising action, where it's building and building and building to a climax. This spot, right here. Now, I also told you in class today that you've been kind of lied to. The climax in literature is not always the most exciting part. Now, that's one definition of what a climax can be, the most exciting or peak of excitement. But in literature, it's actually the point of no return. You can see that if I make this step, no matter how much I've risen, if I make this step, if I take this step, the rest of my action will have to happen a certain way. I am not in control of it. I am falling if I choose to take this step. So rising action leads to falling action. Rising action leads to falling action. Now, when I fall, by definition, I am out of control. Nothing is in my control. So the climax, it might be the most exciting part, but sometimes the rising action is, sometimes the falling action is. Sometimes, if there's a big twist at the end, the resolution is. Oh, I just gave it away. This last part is the resolution. But that climax is the point of no return. Understanding that will also help us get a feel for what I'm about to do here. Now, character, plot, conflict, and theme. Those are what I like to call the four biggies. They are literary elements. And we talked about elements yesterday. They are the basic substance from which all other things are made. So it makes sense that literary elements are the basic things from which all literature is made. Now, we established that elements don't really do much good on their own. It's only when they're combined with other elements that they make something, a compound, that is useful. Same thing with the literary elements. Let's write a reminder to ourselves that these are literary elements. But now comes the part that you've probably never seen before, unless you were in class today, in which case you've seen it. But for those of you who are not in class today, for those of you who are just wanting to get this sense again, I'm going to show you something that's going to unlock the world of literature for you. Character. It's more than just my name. It's who I am. Character is who we are. Plot is what we do. Now it makes sense that who we are directly influences what we do. Now who I am is a product of who raised me. My mom is a doctor of psychology. My dad is a mechanical engineer. They're both really intelligent people. But do you know what I know about them? They are constantly craving new information. They're both constantly getting new certifications and new jobs that they can increase their knowledge. Well, I'm the same way. I watch the History Channel, the Science Channel, the Discovery Channel. I want to learn more constantly. Although my education, everything that I'm required to have in order to teach you, has been completed, I still just completed a class at UB to try to help me become a better teacher. That's who I am. That's part of how I was raised. So what I do with these extra things that I do makes sense because that's who I am. Remember, my grandpa used to say, your best is good enough for today. Don't ever let anybody tell you your best isn't good enough. Your best is good enough for today. But tomorrow, your best better be better. It's part of who I am, so it's part of what I do. It's directly influenced. Now, it makes sense that what we do will determine the situations we get into. Well, life is conflict and dealing with conflict. Conflicts in our lives are obstacles and problems. Now these obstacles and problems, they need to be overcome. But they're a direct result of what we do. But don't they also, conflicts, don't they also force us to change what we do? They most certainly do. So character has an impact on plot. And plot leads us directly to conflict. But conflict, we know, changes what we must do if we're ever going to get past that conflict. Here's where the interesting thing comes in and why I gave you both of these diagrams at the same time. Well, if we know that conflict shapes plot, where do we see plot taking its first turn? At the rising action. Plot takes its first turn at the rising action, so it makes sense that the moment our, and I'm going to use a different color for this, the moment our conflict, our main conflict in the story is introduced, boom, our plot changes course. This is where the main conflict is introduced. The main conflict is introduced there. But we know, because every conflict must have a resolution, that's what we're working towards. Well, where's the resolution? The resolution is all the way at the end. Well, you and I both know that we're in the middle of conflict. When we're in the middle of conflict, we are not thinking clearly. We're focused so narrowly on our conflict that we can't really learn much from it while we're in it. It's not until after the conflict is resolved that we can look around. It's like if I made that decision and all that falling took place, I wouldn't be able to make sense of anything that was going on until I, boom, hit rock bottom, hit that resolution, that flat plane, and was able to look around and take a look at what kept coming up throughout my conflict. What kept coming up throughout my conflict? All the stuff that was going on. Don't we call the stuff that keeps coming up over and over again a theme? When we eventually solve this conflict and resolve it, can't we take a look at themes and all the stuff that kept coming up over and over and over again? We sure can. So that means that we get our themes to become absolutely clear during the resolution. Once the plot has played itself out, our conflicts have been resolved, and we come out the other side, we can start analyzing what kept coming up over and over and over again. And do you know what I know about that? When we analyze what's come up over and over and over again, we in turn learn something that changes who we are. We learn things, and as we learn things, it changes who we are, which means that it will change what we do, and the new obstacles and problems we face, which will change what we do again, and ultimately when we resolve this conflict, we're going to learn more things that change us again. These things that we learn from all of these themes that we bring together, an author starts with that in mind. Doesn't it make sense that the lesson that a character learns, maybe the main idea that the main character learns, is what we were supposed to learn as readers all along? If we're being a good reader, and we're making predictions, and we're connecting to the story, and we're making this a part of this, and a part of this, we can learn exactly what the main character learns. But who started with all that in mind? The author. The author's main purpose and main idea was to make a connection with you. Well, we connect best to people, don't we? Well, that's why the author created the character in the first place, and created the plot that they took them through, and the conflicts that they experienced that changed what they had to do, that created new conflicts that eventually got resolved, and allowed them to examine the things that kept coming up over and over and over again, which eventually led them to change who they were from the lesson they learned by being able to sit and say, hey, wait a minute! What just happened? And if we're doing our job as a reader, we're going to learn what the character learned, which means that we've accomplished our purpose as a reader, to connect with that author. And that author has accomplished his or her purpose by allowing that connection to happen. But if you understand the way these two diagrams interact with one another, that this conflict will change the course of the plot, and that through the resolution to that conflict, a decision has been made that has set all of this into action and allowed us to come out on the other end and analyze and change who we are, you've just had the secret to every single piece of literature you will ever read unlocked to you. That right there, if you can commit that, and only that, to your memory, and to understanding how every story you ever read will work, then guess what? You are going to be able to independently pick up books, even books that are difficult for you. And if you can identify main basic points from these two diagrams, you will be able to use the rest of your knowledge of every story to apply to that specific story and come out on the other end changed as the character was. We're about to embark on Walk Two Moons by Sharon Creech. And if we do our job, and if we understand this, I guarantee you this book, it's going to hit you, and it's going to make you learn something, and you're going to come out changed, just as the main character does in the book that we're about to explore. Guys, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you tomorrow.